Hello, everyone. This has been quite a long time coming. I'm sorry for the delay. I know I made the playlist the full reading of the Nazis and the Supernatural, and it's kind of stopped at a weird point. That is my fault. I'm sorry. I was trying to get some Minecraft gameplay or something for the background of this, and that wound up not working out because it would just have been a bit tedious. I was just a bit lazy with it. That's my bad. And then after that, I haven't really had a lot of time to do this. Um, I've just kind of been doing other things instead. I have a new job now. I was doing the job search for a little while. Um, so I figured I would take a moment and I would actually come back and restart the series up again because we ended off right on chapter 5 and we didn't continue or finish it. Could you believe that? That's horrible. So, I wanted to continue this series, and I do want to finish it for you guys, because I do believe that this is a good book and a fun book to read. So, with that out of the way, with that long, tedious intro, let's get back into it. Chapter 5, The Nazi Grail Castle. Many myths have grown up around Wesselsburg Castle and its associations with Himmler. Some are easily disproved, others implausible, but in spite of the most rigorous skeptical investigation, a small but undeniable kernel of truth remains. The gap between Himmler's Oh, never mind. That's nothing. That's just the hose outside. For a moment, I was like, what is that noise? I was very confused. My bad. I'll continue reading. The gap between Himmler's conception of the castle and its role, as opposed to the reality of what he could and could not do in his fortress, was undoubtedly a topic that vexed him. In a very real sense, the creation of Wesselsburg Castle represented the fulfillment of his dream. One might say fantasies, to the same extent that the castle of Neuschwanstein symbolized the romantic version of the mad King Ludwig of Bavaria. Neuschwanstein survived its founder and continues to be a tourist attraction. Wesselsburg did not, and it was many years before Himmler's once proud fortress was restored and opened to the public. Early history of Wesselsburg Castle. Wesselsburg Castle lies in the hills of the North Rhine-Westphalia province of Germany near the town of Paderborn, with the nearest large city being Hanover. A castle has stood on the site since the time of Charlemagne, but the present structure was built in the early 17th century for the bishops of Paderborn, who had owned it since 1301. The earliest castle on the site was used by Charlemagne and the Holy Roman Emperors who succeeded him as a defensive fortification against the Hungarians. At this time, the castle was known as Wiffelsburg, right? Wifflisburg, my bad, Wifflisburg. But by the late 10th century, it had fallen into disuse as the Hungarians no longer posed a threat. In 1123, Earl Frederick von Arnsberg built a new castle on the site, but because he was unpopular with his tenant farmers, it was destroyed by them on his death in 1124. In 1301, Graf von Waldeck sold the land to the Prince Bishop of Paderborn, and at that time there were two fortified buildings on the site, the Bürensche and the Waldecksche House. In the early 17th century, the bishops of Paderborn combined the two fortresses into a single triangular castle. During the 30 Years' War, Swedish troops destroyed it, and it was not until 1654 that the program of rebuilding began. This time, new features were added, with the three towers of the castle being crowned with domes in the Baroque architectural style that was fashionable at the time. The site also had a dark side, with a room formerly used by the Inquisition still surviving in the basement. Thousands of witches were held in the castle and tortured and executed. 2 trials of witches are known to have taken place there in 1631, but because a confession was said to remove the need for court proceedings, most of the condemned witches never received a trial at all. Even after the persecution of witches finally ended, the castle continued to house a prison, and it was not until 1802 that the prison cells fell into disuse. In 1802, the castle passed into the hands of the King of Prussia. He neglected it, and in 1815, the North Tower was struck by lightning and virtually destroyed. Only the outer walls survived the fire. In 1924, it passed into the hands of the district of Björn, who turned it into a cultural center and local museum. The new building included a restaurant and youth hostel. The North Tower continued to need repair work, and during the winter of 1932-3, it was necessary to support it with guy wires. A society for the preservation of the castle took charge of its upkeep, but with growing economic difficulties, they were less and less able to carry out the degree of renovation that was necessary. Wesselsburg as the headquarters of Himmler's knightly order. From the moment he became leader of the SS, Himmler's conception of the organization was as far more than a bodyguard or even an elite police force. Never forget, he said, we are a knightly order. His fascination with German history, the Arthurian legends, and the medieval notions of chivalry was most clearly expressed in the Grail Castle that became the headquarters for the elite of the new knightly order. Himmler had dreamed of creating such a center for some years, before the appointment of Hitler as chancellor in 1933 made it possible for his vision to be turned into a reality. From that moment, using his new authority as Germany's police chief, he traveled across the country in search of the ideal location for his Grail Castle. Himmler's Rasputin, Karl Maria Virigat. In 1933, the castle was drawn to Himmler's attention, and he immediately became intrigued by it. It was on the 3rd of November 1933 that Himmler paid his first visit to Wesselsburg Castle. He was accompanied by Karl Maria Virigat, who for 6 years became one of the Reichsführer's most influential gurus. Virigat drew Himmler's attention to a 19th century poem, Am Barkenbaum, by Ferdinand Frelingrath. The poet described a battle between invaders from the east and the Germans who successfully defended their homeland against the enemy. Virigat suggested that the setting for the battle was in the region of Wesselsburg, an idea that attracted Himmler greatly. Virigat had been introduced to Himmler earlier that year, and he took the SS leader to the castle, which was now deteriorating after years of neglect. He pointed out a number of reasons why he felt it would be the ideal location for the headquarters of Himmler's order. In the first place, as the former seat of many of the bishops of Paderborn, it had mystical associations with Germany's Christian heritage. Secondly, the bishops had been active and enthusiastic persecutors of witches during the 17th century and were responsible for the deaths of 100,000 accused women in the area alone. Many of them had been executed within the castle itself. The Externstein, right? Yeah, the Externstein. Nearby stood the Externstein, a natural rock formation that had been a place of worship from as long ago as the time of the Stone Age. Most importantly of all, it stood in the region of the Teutoburg Forest, site of the great battle in which the German tribes under their leader, Hermann, had defeated the Roman legions set to conquer them and had slain their commander. The Externstein has been described as Germany's equivalent of Ayers Rock. It is actually a rock formation that consists of a series of pillars that protrude out of the surrounding forest. There are 5 pillars in all, with the tallest being 37.5 meters, 123 feet for my fellow Americans, high, and they form a natural wall several hundred meters long. Stone tools have been discovered on the site dating back to at least 10,000 BC. It has long been regarded as an important religious center, although there is no actual proof of any kind of pagan activity before the early Christian era. The heathen Saxons did conduct some kind of rituals at the scene, and after he conquered them in AD 772, Charlemagne forcibly converted them to Christianity. He cut down the Irminsul, a large tree that was the center of worship for the pagans and whose precise location remains unknown. The most probable site for it is Obermarsberg, formerly known as Eresburg. There is a hill to the south of the Externstein, and tradition asserts that a church dedicated to St. Peter was built where the Irminsul had previously stood. All right, I'm probably going to finish this section and then call the reading here. From 1920s onward, Wilhelm Tut began researching German culture in Detmold. He came to the conclusion that the Irminsul was situated close by the Externstein. Tut joined the Nazis in 1933 and urged that the Externstein be turned into a sacred grove to commemorate the Teutonic ancestors of the German nation. Himmler was impressed by Tut's ideas and founded an Externstein Foundation in the same year. The Ahnernabbe soon devoted considerable time and effort to researching the rocks. The Externstein also contains a number of Christian carvings, most notably the Descent from the Cross. This shows Jesus on the cross together with the Virgin Mary, Joseph of Arimathea, and Nicodemus. God, the sun, and the moon are all pictured above Jesus, while below the cross a bent tree was said by the pagans to symbolize the Irminsul. On Hitler's birthday and at the summer and winter solstices, Hang on, I lost my spot. On Hitler's birthday and at the summer and winter solstices, the Hitler Youth gathered at the Externstein to sing pagan chants. On the left side of the Church of St. Peter is a stone near the confessional. It is labeled Irminsul and was discovered on site in 1938. There is no doubt that this cannot be the original Irminsul, as it is made out of stone, while the sacred object cut down by Charlemagne was a tree. It is, however, claimed that in a small chapel underneath the altar, the original Irminsul once stood. What is virtually certain is that the 1938 discovery was a fraud perpetuated on behalf of the Ahnenerbe, to reinforce the site's pagan associations. Willigut is considered the most likely author of this particular deception. As well as its religious significance for both Christians and pagans, there is also clear evidence that that part of the Externstein's function was as an astronomical calendar. I cannot read today. I'm sorry, guys. The rocks contain a 20-inch window, which at the time of the summer solstice aligns with the sun at the moment of sunrise. As well as the Externstein itself, the surrounding Teutoburg forest was also of considerable interest to Himmler and his Ahnernabbe. It is a range of low, densely wooded mountains in the North Rhine-Westphalia region of Germany. In 9 AD, it was the scene of a bloody battle between the German chief Hermann, called Arminius, right? Arminius. Yeah. Arminius. Okay, I'm reading that right. Cool. By the Romans and the Roman legions. The Germans won the battle, and during the Napoleonic Wars, the symbol became a sign of German resistance to foreign invasion and a symbol of national identity. A statue known as the Hermannsdenkmal, Hermann Monument, was erected to commemorate Hermann's triumph. In 1875, Kaiser Wilhelm I dedicated the monument to the nation and added a statue of himself to the north of the forest at a place known as Porta Westfalica. Porta Westfalica. No. My bad, guys. Porta Westfalica. Westfalica. It was situated in Wittgensburg, a hill in the Wiehen Hills mountain range, to commemorate Wilhelm's status as the first ruler of a unified Germany. The combination of historical, legendary, and mystical associations captivated Himmler, and when Willigut suggested that the castle must have been the site of the battle mentioned in Freudengraf's poem, he was convinced. And that ends that there for our first section of chapter 5. I'm sorry if I keep stuttering and like stumbling over my words. It's like 3 a.m. at the time of recording this. Thank you guys for listening. My apologies on being so delayed on this. I will continue hopefully reading a bit more frequently once I get my schedule down with this new work that I have going on, and I will see you all again, hopefully sometime sooner. I'm sorry for the delay again. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. And yeah, bye.